This is BBC World Service Television.
Good evening, this is the BBC World Service News and I'm Jack Thompson. The headlines tonight: Lebanese kidnappers release 2 of their key Western hostages. Terry Waite, the Archbishop of Canterbury's envoy, heads for freedom after more than 5 years in captivity. And freed with him is the American university teacher Thomas Sutherland, who's been held since June 1985. And in Yugoslavia, thousands surrender after the capture of Vukovar by federal and Serbian forces. The United Nations says that the 2 hostages, Terry Waite and Thomas Sutherland, have been freed from captivity in Lebanon. They're expected to arrive in the Syrian capital Damascus at any time. Terry Waite, a Briton, was held for nearly 5 years. He was kidnapped during a mission to free other Western hostages, including Thomas Sutherland, the other hostage thought to have been freed with him. He's an American college lecturer and was held for 6.5 years. Both men were kidnapped by a pro-Iranian group, Islamic Jihad. First reports of the release came 8 hours ago. Later, the Syrians and then the United Nations confirmed the 2 were indeed free. But, as with previous hostage releases, their families and friends have waited to see pictures of their arrival in the Syrian capital before believing the reports.
Kidnapped 1,763 days ago when he made one trip too many to Beirut, Terry Waite was immediately driven by car to Damascus after his release this afternoon. With him, Thomas Sutherland, one of the hostages whose freedom he was trying to secure when he was taken. Sutherland, a naturalized American but Scottish-born, was Dean of Agriculture at the American University in Beirut. Final confirmation of the release came shortly before 4 o'clock this afternoon, but the kidnapped group Islamic Jihad had announced the imminent release of the 2 this morning, saying this completed what had been started with the UN Secretary-General. And to authenticate their statement, a new picture of the American journalist Terry Anderson, the longest-held hostage. The news was broken to Terry Waite's cousin by a BBC reporter this morning.
How amazing.
Right, if I just read it to you.
Yes.
Then, this has just come over from Reuters at 11:47.
After so many false rumours, John Waite was then still cautious.
I don't know what to say.
In Terry Waite's church in South London, preparations to welcome him home after the long hours, days, years of prayer. The former British hostage, Jackie Mann, now living in Cyprus, knows what Terry Waite will go through to come back to the world.
Yes, I heard it on the news. I think it's absolutely wonderful and very much earlier than we expected. Both Jackie and I are delighted that Terry is at last free.
One change Terry Waite will come back to, a new employer at Lambeth Palace.
I'm delighted to possess the news which I've just received that Terry Waite has been released and is on his way to Damascus. The prayers of so many people have been answered today, and we thank God for news of his release.
We waited 5 years for this. It must have been a long and agonizing period, both for Terry Waite and for all those who know him, his family and his friends. I hope very soon we'll see the end of that. And if the reports are correct, he should be with us this evening, and I very much hope on his way home here tomorrow.
Well, the release of the 2 men brings to 6 the number of Western hostages freed since the middle of this year. But as Brian Hanrahan reports, the complexities of Middle East politics have been the main obstacle to a settlement of the crisis.
At every stage of this complicated process, the release of Western hostages has been accompanied by the freeing of Shiite prisoners under Israeli control. Israel has been willing to trade them for information about its soldiers missing in Lebanon. And although the 2 processes are technically separate, the United Nations mediation has linked them together.